Hey y'all, welcome to Anita's World, a safe space for everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about the fear of solo travel and sharing some tips on how to overcome that fear. I think there's people that want to explore, that want to travel and see the world, but what holds them back is fear. In this video, I specifically want to share how to navigate that, especially as someone who has had experience solo traveling both domestically and internationally. I kind of had to navigate that fear myself as well. So I just want to kind of share my thoughts and tips and advice. And I feel like it's important for me to talk about this. I want to be that resource for anyone, but more specifically women of color and Black women that want to experience freedom through traveling, that want to experience liberation, exploration and discovery, and just also like, if you grew up in the same town most of your life and you just want to get out and you want to see something different, you know what I mean? That in itself can be a life-changing experience. And so with this video, I hope that it encourages women of color, Black women, people in general, honestly, to take that leap of faith and experience the amazing benefits of solo traveling, because it's amazing and I'm so glad that I did it. I did do a blog post about this and going into more like structured points. So if you want to kind of refer to a more structured written version of this, definitely check out my blog post. I'll link it below, because I would love for you to check it out and read it, and maybe bookmark it or save it for when you plan to go on your first solo trip. So when it comes to overcoming the fear of solo travel, the first thing that I think is important to think about is, where does the fear come from? Is it someone else's story, or is it your own? A lot of times the fear of solo travel is it's not always because we're scared. It's because of what other people have projected onto us, the stories that other people have told us. That is like the root of that fear. So I think it's important to get to the root of where that fear comes from. And I think you can do this with anything in life, not even just the fear of solo travel, but any other fears that you may have in your life. I encourage you to think about, whose story is it? For example, when it comes to the fear of solo travel, typically, if it's someone else's story, this can come up in the form of friends or family or loved ones encouraging you or discouraging you to solo travel by saying things like, it's not safe, it's dangerous, XYZ is going to happen to you if you go there. I read this news article and it's saying that women are getting kidnapped, and just all the like fear mongering and just further perpetuating this narrative of fear and of bad things happening to you if you decide to travel by yourself, especially as a woman. When family members, friends or loved ones behave in that way and react in that way, I don't think they necessarily have the language, but what I think they are trying to say, and what I've noticed in my experience, is that, when you take off all the layers of like them putting this fear onto you, the root of it all is, I love you, I care about you deeply, and I'm concerned about your safety. I am worried about what might happen to you if you're in a different state or a different country, or you're across the globe and I'm not able to easily get to you if something were to happen to you. And I am afraid. And so they project this fear, but they don't ever make it clear that it's theirs. Like, it is a fear that they have. The fear belongs to them, but they're projecting it onto you. And so then you start to feel like, oh my God, what if these things happen to me? Oh my God, I'm a single woman, like I shouldn't be doing this. And you start to freak out and you are basically holding yourself back from experiencing certain places because of the fear that's been projected onto you. So I think it's important to really know, like, is this someone else's story? Because it very well might be someone else's story. And if that is the case, you can then acknowledge that this story is not mine. This is not what I believe. This is not what I am going to put my energy into. And you can let that story go, and then you can write your own narrative of like, this is the type of experience that I'm going to have. And the reason that I'm going to have this experience is because I'm going to do the research. I'm going to put in the work and prepare for what this travel experience is going to be. So I think it's just a really good exercise to know whose story is it. If it's not your story, let that shit go. Like, let it go. If it's not your story, let it go. And rewrite that narrative in a way that is true to you so that you can truly thrive. If this story of fear was created within you, then I also encourage you to dig deeper into the root of that story and why that fear is coming up for you. And I notice oftentimes, this is just me giving an example, but everyone is different and only you can really get down to the root of what it is for you. But a lot of times that fear is rooted in lack. It's rooted in insecurity and feeling like you're not enough of something. Is it because you feel like you are not strong enough to be somewhere by yourself? Is it because you feel you are not secure and confident enough in yourself to navigate a new place alone? If you're telling yourself this story, really get to the root of why you feel like you are not enough in some capacity, and then you can start to work through that. So the next step, after you've determined, you know, whose story it is, and you are able to rewrite the narrative of the story that's either been projected onto you or that you've created in your head, then the work is not done. You know, like, that doesn't make the fear go away. You then have to start taking action. What really is going to help you move through that anxiety and feel it anyway, but still get through it, is spending time alone in public settings. And I stress public settings because I think many of us spend time alone, right? Like, if you're at home, whether you live by yourself or you live with people, I'm sure, like, we all have our moments where we, you know, are spending time alone, or you might, you know, just be in your room chilling by yourself, and that can be your little safe space. Maybe you love your solitude at home. But to be able to carry that out into the world as well is a different kind of experience, right? And so a lot of times, I mean, if you think about it, not many people do things alone. You know, when you go out into the world, you see families, you see couples, you see friends, no matter where it is, whether it's at a restaurant, whether it's at, you know, the grocery store, whether it's at a supermarket, at the mall, you know, wherever it is, the gym. Like, most people are doing things in a pair or in a group. And so it can feel a little bit intimidating to navigate certain spaces alone. Especially when you feel like, am I the only one that's by myself? Are people looking at me? You feel really vulnerable. But that's the point. We look at vulnerability as a weakness, but I think it's important to put yourself in situations where you are vulnerable so that it can be your power. It's like, wow, yeah, I feel very vulnerable right now, but I'm still navigating this space. I'm still working through it. And you start to build confidence through those experiences of vulnerability. And you also start to like surrender and trust in your intuition a lot more. So that's one big thing about solo travel. You gotta lean into that intuition. You really gotta lean into your intuition, and you need to be able to decipher the difference between intuition and anxiety. But I feel like the only way to do that is to step into your vulnerability. And that doesn't mean you need to make it apparent to the outside world, but you can just have this knowing in you like, wow, I feel really vulnerable right now, and you can be compassionate with yourself. So highly recommend going out in public by yourself and doing things by yourself, especially if this is not something that you do on a regular basis. And so some examples of that could be, you know, maybe there's a new restaurant that you've been wanting to try. Make a reservation for one and go by yourself and get dressed and get cute and try this new restaurant out by yourself. And you never know, you might end up having a great connection with the server. You might have an amazing experience. So don't get so caught up on the fact that like, oh my God, I'm out in public and I'm by myself. Like, just be present. Going to the beach or to the park, that's how I kind of started to get comfortable being alone, is going to the beach, going to the park, being in more like open settings. Even going to like a concert or any local pop-up events, I think is a really great way. If you go to eventbrite.com, you can search up certain events in your area. So let's say you're someone that's really into, I'm just gonna say something random, but like, let's say you're really into crocheting. You can go on Eventbrite and type in like crochet near me, and it'll have you put in like your city or your zip code, and there might be events surrounding crocheting. Or if there's a certain book that you've been reading and you really want to talk to other people about it, there may be a book club for that. Or if you're really into a certain type of music, or if you're into poetry even, and you look up certain events, there might be spoken word events that you can share your poetry, you know, events where you can share your poetry. So like, definitely look up events in your area that are within your interest, and don't be afraid to like go out there and show up and take up space even by yourself, and connect with other like-minded people and get out of your comfort zone. Like, doing those types of things is going to help you get out of your comfort zone, and it is in those moments when you step out of your comfort zone, that is when you are able to grow the most. So it's gonna feel vulnerable, it's gonna feel, you know, scary and intimidating and daunting, but as you start to do it more, this is going to be a way of preparing for traveling solo. The next tip is doing research, and I feel like this is a very obvious one, but I really want to stress a specific aspect of it. So yes, do your research. If there's a certain place you're interested in traveling to alone, definitely go online, do your research about that city, state, country, whatever. You know, learn about the history, the cultural customs, and not just the history, but also like, what is it like to travel there today, like in 2023, 2024. But also what I encourage is go on Google or go on YouTube and type in the place that you want to visit, type in solo travel, and then type in your demographic. So for example, what that looked like for me was Black women solo travel Spain. Put that into Google, put that into YouTube, and watch videos or read blog posts of other people that look like you that are also doing this. And you know, obviously it can be different for everyone. Maybe you just want to look up solo travel female Mexico, solo travel Colombia, like wherever it is. This is going to give you hope, and it's going to affirm this new narrative that you are creating for yourself. And so if you are able to go on YouTube and see that other Black women or women of color or people in general are going to this place that you've always dreamed of going to, and you can see that they're having an amazing experience and they're sharing their truth, that is going to give you hope that like, okay, there's people out here that are doing it and they're having a good time and they're making the most of the experience. I can do this too. Like, I can experience that same liberation and that same, obviously everyone's experience is going to be slightly different, but it's just a way of showing you like there's someone out there that looks like you that is doing it too. So you are capable. You are capable, you are worthy, you are deserving, and it's something that you can do, and you don't have to allow fear to hold you back or feel like you have to sit and wait around for people to show up and be able to do it with you, because you can kind of create this community or create a playlist or, you know, create like some links for yourself of like, okay, these are people that have visited this country and they've gone solo, and this is the kind of experience that they had, and not necessarily comparing your experience to theirs, because like I said, everyone's experience is different, but it's just giving you that hope and that affirmation that you can do it too. So the next tip that I have is to take safety precautions beforehand. And this is more so like once you actually plan your trip, the number one thing that I recommend is making sure that you share your travel plans with someone that you trust. I would recommend, like, if you have like 2 or 3 people that you trust that you can share your travel plans with, that would be better. But even if it's just one person, I highly recommend. And what this looks like for me, I have 2 people in my life that I, you know, trust to share my travel plans with. And one of those people, I share every detail. Like, I'm sending them my flight details. I'm sending them the link to the Airbnb I'm staying at. I'm sending them, you know, they have my location. They have all the details of what I'm doing day by day. And obviously things can change, but they have my location at all times, so they can see where I'm at. So I think it's important. This can be your mom, this can be your dad, this can be a sibling, an uncle, aunt, best friend, but make sure you have at least 1 to 3 people. I'm talking about in confidence, people that you trust to be able to say, hey, this is exactly where I'm gonna be. This is what I plan to be doing. This is when I plan to leave. This is when I plan to return. Because if something were to happen to you, and I've never had anything bad happen to me. I've never had my life be on the line in any way or be in a compromising situation when traveling solo. But if something were to happen and the authorities need to get involved, then when they contact someone from your home country or your state or wherever, it's not going to be a situation of like, oh, this is the first that I'm hearing about Anita being in Spain, or this is the first that I'm hearing about Anita going to New York or wherever it is. I'm just like naming random places, but if something were to happen to you, you don't want the people that love and care about you the most to have no type of awareness or knowledge that you traveled to this place by yourself. And I also think that this can help alleviate some of that anxiety that has been projected onto you. So, for example, say it's your parent. Being able to say, okay, I've done my research. This is where I've chosen to stay. This is the things that I'm planning to do. And when they see that, they are going to be able to be like, okay, like she's done her research, or they've done their research. They're going to have a little bit less anxiety if you're keeping them in the loop and communicating with them. Another thing that I would highly recommend is making sure that you arrange your arrival during daylight. I feel like people don't really think about this, but if you're traveling to a place where the time zone is completely different, you really want to consider that. I think it's important to consider, okay, this is when I'm leaving. Based off of the time zone that I'm going to, this is what time it's going to be when I get there. And then also account for the time from the airport to your hotel or to your Airbnb or hostel or wherever you're staying, so that you can kind of calculate it of like, okay, if I get there at 2 p.m. and then the drive from the airport to my hotel is 2 hours, then okay, perfect, I'll be there during daylight still. But if you calculate it and you realize like, oh, it's probably gonna be like 11 o'clock at night when I get there, you might want to rearrange some things so that you can arrive during daylight, so that your first time coming to this new city, state, or country, you're very much aware of your surroundings. You can see the street signs, you can see, you know, the pathway to get from the airport to where you're staying. Like, those things are important. It might sound like very small details, but when you start to solo travel, you'll understand why those little details of knowing and being aware of your surroundings and being able to visibly see what your surroundings look like, where you're staying to and from the airport is important, okay? So highly recommend that. So my final tip is to solo travel locally or domestically first. I know when I first started looking into solo traveling, a lot of the people that I saw solo traveling were going to Bali, you know, Spain, France, Colombia, Mexico. Like, they were going to different countries, and I'm like, I don't think I'm ready for all of that yet. So I realized, I'm like, okay, solo traveling doesn't mean you have to go to some foreign country. Like, you can solo travel in your state. You can solo travel in your country. My very first solo travel destination was San Francisco, California. I stayed in California before, so California wasn't new to me, but I'd never been to the Bay Area. So that was just the perfect place for me to solo travel for my first time. It was still something that was new, but there was still that level of familiarity because I didn't have to learn a new language. I didn't have to learn a new like way of life or cultural norms. It wasn't a culture shock in any way, but just know you don't need to leave the country. You can solo travel in your state. You know, especially if you live in a big state, you may be able to take a 3-hour road trip to a new town and experience that by yourself. And that can be kind of like a good first step, but also you still have that comfort of knowing I can be back home in like an hour or two. So highly recommend doing that first before you go out to another country, because that is a different experience in itself. And I think that it's important to get comfortable being alone in your state or country before you just hop to a different area, a different foreign country. But if you are someone that is considering solo traveling but you're afraid, or you are just wanting to travel but you're waiting for your friend to go with you or your partner to go with you, I highly encourage you to just take that leap of faith and follow these tips, because it will help. It's what helped me. I'm speaking from personal experience. And if you are someone that has solo traveled, comment down below for people that, you know, like, comment your advice, comment your tips, comment your wisdom, so that if people come to this video and they're afraid to solo travel, they can feel loved and understood and seen and affirmed in taking that leap of faith. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!